Hello, and welcome to episode 1 on our series of the Wars of Religion within Europe. Today we're going to be discussing the French Wars of Religion, also known as the French Civil Wars, here on Learning the Social Sciences. Starting off, let's go for a background in terms of what is going on in France. Their population is rising between the 15th century and 1570. They're having more land under cultivation, which means more food, and so people are living longer. We have prices going up, but that's not necessarily good for the peasantry. Why? Well, the purchasing power is going down. However, for the nobles, they're totally fine, and they can continue to afford whatever they need. Now, in terms of the king and taxes, if the king decides to go to war, he may ask the nobles for loans to be able to pay for it, or they're probably actually going to say no. Or he can increase the taxes on the peasantry, which is usually what happened. And so again, the pocketbooks of the peasants is hit. Furthermore, the peasants have to always pay their tithe to the church, in a way, a church tax. But Protestantism is growing within France. So is the movement of people who want to stop the Protestant Reformation. And this is going to what leads to the conflict. We also have during this time period people who are trying to kind of balance the sides, people known as politiques. A politique is a ruler who urged tolerance and moderation, and they basically became indifferent to the kind of religious struggles of the era. Elizabeth I would be a great example of a successful politique. And somebody in France, we can talk about Henry IV, but we're not there yet. We will talk about him. Now, a French Protestant is known as a Huguenot or Huguenot, depends on how you want to pronounce it. In France, we are having roughly 40%, that's a big percent of the nobility converting to Protestantism. That is a big number. However, we're also having an increase in arrests and in terms of persecutions against the Protestants. In 1534, we have a round of Protestant arrests, and that is when John Calvin left the country and will eventually settle over in Geneva. In 1540, we had the Edict of Fontainebleau, which made Protestants subject to the Inquisition, and that's never good if you go and convert to Protestantism, but then you end up in a Catholic Inquisition court. We also have Henry II, King of France, and Philip II, King of Spain, ending their wars together so that they can focus on this Protestant threat that is growing. And so Henry II began to persecute the Calvinists within France, and many people became martyrs due to this. Furthermore, in 1551, the Edict of Fontainebleau established more measures against the Protestants. So we're having some issues arise even more. And like I mentioned previously, around 40% of the population of the noblemen are converting to Protestantism. And now the nobles in France in this time have a lot of power. Louis XIV has not come in yet, and so they are wielding a lot of power and, well, their own military. And if you're thinking about the entire population of France being around 16 million, we now have around 1.2 million Calvinists within the country. So let's talk about the roots of the hostility within France. In 1559, King Henry II was killed in a freak jousting tournament, and his 15-year-old son Francis II became king. What is going to happen here is Catherine de' Medici, the mother, and yes, the Medici family is now ruling in France, but we are going to be having Catherine de' Medici ruling as a regent over Francis. But Francis is going to die within a year. And really now from here on out, France is not going to have a powerful monarch from the Valois family. The 9-year-old brother, Charles IX, is going to be now taking the throne, and Catherine de' Medici is really going to now be ruling the country with a strong arm. but she has to also navigate her way through a whole bunch of powerful nobles that are rising up. We have the families, the Guise family, that are going to be rising up, and the Bourbon family. The Guise family are kind of ultra Catholics, and the Bourbons are Protestant. We also have other families that are rising up as well, and also have a lot of sway and influence. But in terms of the ones that Catherine is going to deal with the most, that is going to be the Guise family. It's kind of written like Guy's family, but it's Guise family and the Bourbons. Now, Catherine and Henry II had plenty of children, so you would assume that the Valois dynasty is really intact for a period of time. They have 4 sons, and why do I mention only the sons? Well, in France, you don't put a woman to reign solely on the throne of France, but she does have female kids as well. With her 4 sons, Francis II, as we know now, has passed away within 1 year of ruling. And we are up to Charles IX, and he has then 2 more younger brothers as kind of a just in case things happen. Now, the wars break out in France when the Guise family, the Duke of Guise, goes and murders Protestants within his territory, within his province. And fighting is going to now be breaking out in 1562. And Catherine is going to constantly try to be negotiating between the French Protestants and between the Guise family and others to bring in peace. However, whenever they make peace, it seems like just a short time later, war is going to break out again. So, for example, they were able to bring peace in 1563, a year after the fighting began, but in 1567, it all started again. And Catherine usually is kind of siding more with the Guise family due to their power. But over time, she starts swaying more to the Protestant side because she is always trying to be the pendulum in this conflict, also to maintain the power. Now, she's noticing that the Protestants are having a very, very talented leader rise up, Coligny. He is great at the military and also very influential politically, and she sees him as a threat. So what she goes and does to help usher in peace is she marries her daughter off to a member of the Protestant Bourbon household. So she marries her daughter to Henry of Navarre, a very influential Bourbon Protestant. At the wedding ceremony, violence breaks out and Coligny is shot. And Catherine now assumes that there is going to be an uprising among the Protestants because their leader has been shot. And you would expect that. Now, she then goes to her son, Charles, and says that this most likely is a plot now. We are going to have an uprising. We have to go out and put the Protestants in their place. And Charles then goes and agrees to it, which then ushers in the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. It happened on August 24th, 1572. Coligny and 3,000 French Protestants are massacred within Paris. Over the course of the next 3 days, 20,000 Protestants are going to be killed throughout all of France. And so now being Protestant in France, you are going to do whatever you can to survive. And that's not necessarily the best thing for the Protestants, but also for the monarchy, because you are having people that are now seeing the monarchy as the people that are then killing them. Now, Charles IX died 2 years later, which then brought in the younger brother, Henry III, to the throne. Now, Henry was very much beloved by his mother, but he is not going to be kind of under the reins of his mother like Charles was, because he is coming to the throne far older than Charles was when he came to the throne at 9. Henry III also has something on his shoulders. He has to hurry up and have some kids because Francis II didn't have kids. Charles IX didn't have kids. And now there's only 2 male heirs left with the House of Valois. However, we're not probably going to maybe get an heir from Henry III because he is gay. We do have many monarchs in the history of Europe who are gay, who still go and create an heir for the family line to continue on, but we also have some that don't. Now, Henry is going to, though, rule and try to handle the religious problems within his country. But he also has other issues because poor harvests are now starting to really cause problems within France. Now, what does Henry do as kind of the war of now three Henrys break out? We have Henry III of the House of Valois, the monarch, the king. We have Henry, Duke of Guise, or Guise, who is obviously fighting for more of an ultra-Catholic side to this argument. And we have Henry of Navarre, the brother-in-law of the king, who is of the House of Bourbon. Yes, he is the one who married King Henry III's sister, the one that Catherine set up. So what does Henry III do eventually to try to end this conflict? He has Henry of the House of Guise assassinated by one of his bodyguards. And yes, that does reduce the power of the House of Guise, but it does also make Catholics angry at their Catholic monarch. And eventually then Henry III himself is going to be assassinated. Now that is a bad thing. But what is bad on top of it is actually Henry III's younger brother died before that, which means Henry III was the last of the Valois family for a male. Like I said, they do not put females on the throne. So this is a problem because who is now coming up and taking the throne of France? Henry of Navarre of the House of Bourbon. In other words, a Protestant now is going to be sitting on the throne of France. And to the Catholics, they see this almost like a nightmare. And so they are going to rise up and join in with this item that is called the Catholic League, sponsored by Spain. It is a group that is going out and driving out Protestants and going out in open revolt against Henry. And they started technically during the reign of Henry III, but now they definitely are kind of enraged over the situation. So the Catholic League did not accept Henry of Navarre coming to the throne, and they instead said, okay, fine, the House of Bourbon can come to the throne, but we want this cardinal, this Catholic cardinal, Cardinal de Bourbon, to come to the throne. And of course, that is not followed. And so fighting continues on with the Spanish aiding the Catholic League from 1590 to 1598. However, Henry IV is going to do something in 1593, which is kind of shocking. He goes and converts to Catholicism and says Paris is worth a mass. What is he doing? He is bringing peace to his country and pulling out a true politique move. He is going out and putting his country's peace, his country's stability in front of his own personal choices for religion. And he is going and converting to Catholicism. Now, whether or not he is really authentic, you can debate that. However, he is going to raise his children as Catholics. And so France is going to remain a Catholic nation for generations. Now, this does not outright end the wars of religion. As I said, it's going to continue until 1598, but it does bring a lot of stability in a time period where France is suffering because of the economic damage caused by years of warfare, poor harvests, and famine. In 1598, King Henry IV went and passed the Edict of Nantes. This guaranteed religious rights to the French Protestants, the Huguenots. Now, it did not grant religious freedom for all within France, but it allowed them to practice freely in all districts except for Paris. Don't go and practice in Paris. And so the hostilities are going to be brought down to the point where we no longer have any outright fighting. However, it is not going to actually solve all of the religious problems that are within France at this point in time. One can see that for the fact that a Catholic fanatic is actually going to go and assassinate King Henry IV in 1610. However, he did have heirs to the throne, and the Bourbon family is going to be in charge of France for generations to come. This was episode 1 on the wars of religion in Europe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and always remember to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.